Welcome, good thinkers. Welcome to Good Thinking Live. This is the weekly show, most Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific time here on the West Coast, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, where we, good thinkers, gather to spend a little bit of time away from all the time that we are told what to think, so we can devote a little bit of time to improving how to think. So welcome. Let me know that you are here. Let me know that you are where you're from. And I'm going to try to manage the chat and manage these new scrolling things on our live feed. We show up here on Good Thinkers show up here on LinkedIn Live and on YouTube Live. So if you want to subscribe, you can't subscribe on LinkedIn, but you can subscribe to the channel, Becky Saltzman, and you can hit that bell for notifications so that you know when we're going live. And then you can also watch the replay if you're not here for that. So welcome. Let me know who you are and where you're from, because today we're going to get into something I think I'm really excited about today's topic, the Socratic Method, because I kind of have a crush on Socrates. Anyway, welcome. When you think, here's our first question, in addition to who are you and where you're from. When you think of getting ahead, how do you see it? Like, you see yourself getting ahead in life or getting ahead in business. What image do you see? Do you see yourself competing for a position? Do you see yourself helping your company crush the competition? Maybe you're within a company and you're looking to move up and you're trying to figure out how to better your competition. What does your company do with their competition? And what do you do? So we live in a society where things are competitive. We crush the competitors. We disrupt. We grow. We fight. We win. Does that sound familiar? Jennifer from Multnomah Village, and Brian from Charlotte. Welcome, good thinkers. I'm so glad you're here. All right. And we have Ahmed from KSA. Welcome back. Welcome, all of you good thinkers. We live in this society where things are competitive, right? We have opinions. We have strong opinions, and our opinions kind of take on this kind of competitiveness. So as we're trying to get ahead, we are in this competitive mode, and then our opinions tend to take on this same kind of competitiveness, which is weird. And you think, I know I'm right, and you think you're right, but I know I'm right. And now I'm going to try to convince you that I'm right, and you're going to try, but you're going to fail to convince me that you're right. So we all go away thinking we're winners, and we all go away with our original convictions intact. And in this way, we get no closer to the truth. But today we're going to delve into the Socratic Method as a form of, or as a framework rather, for Socratic Dialogue, which sounds very philosophy-ish, but it's going to be a tool for you to get closer to the truth and learn to work with others in a way to get closer to the truth. So here we go. Stephen, greetings from Beervana, USA. Beer capital. Yes, it's a little early for that here. And Alexandra, welcome from Denmark. Yay! We've got so many good people from all around the world. So this is going to be really good, because we're going to have a lot of questions and involvement because it's the Socratic Method. So rubber chicken so far for everyone who is actually here and shared who you are and where you're from. All right. Quick question. This is the first real kind of question that we'd love to have answered. How many of you have deleted friends or unfollowed people on social media because you disagree with what they say? Yes or no? And actually, because of the way it works, it's deleted or not deleted, unfollowed or not unfollowed. How many of you have unfollowed, or you haven't unfollowed anyone? Just let me know in the chat. All right. How many of you have been unfriended? Me. I've been unfriended. A proud recipient of unfriend, unfollow. There's a lot of talk about Twitter losing all of these followers because of what's happening on Twitter, which will be something fun to think about. Let's see. Mojtaba. Hopefully I said that right. Great. From the Netherlands. Fantastic. Welcome here. And Peggy from Portland. Hi, Peggy. Welcome. We've got a lot of good thinkers on the show. Ahmed, no. He says no. He says, I have not unfriended or unfollowed anyone. Okay, fantastic. Jennifer says, unfollow me. Victor says, yes, he has unfollowed or unfriended. Steven says, unfollowed or unfriended. So some of us say no, some of us say yes. I think most have said yes, that there have either been an experience where they have unfollowed or they have been unfollowed. So most of us have experienced that. All right. We're seeing what's happening with our strongly held beliefs. We're seeing what happens when others fail to question assumptions. We see others jumping to conclusions. How many of you have seen others not questioning their assumptions, failing to challenge their beliefs, jumping to conclusions? Mojtaba says unfollow. Absolutely. Yes. So we've got mostly in the unfollow and unfriend category, whether they've done it or had it done to them. But how many of you think people jump to conclusions and they don't challenge their own assumptions? Yeah? How many of you think that you don't challenge your assumptions, that you jump to your own conclusions? It's easy to see how it works for other people. It's harder to see how it works for us. All right. Now, we all know that it's easy to assume too soon. With all we know enough. So there's a problem, and it's a pretty huge problem. We don't understand each other, and we don't know how to fix it. So Alexander says, have both unfollowed and unfriended people. Yeah, we've all done it. And sometimes you just feel like, I've got to for my sanity, right? But maybe there's a better way. That's what we're going to discuss today. All right. If you put in the chat, if you really think about it, put in the chat, and this is kind of a Socratic question, hint, hint. What's a bigger problem that doesn't boil down at its core to us not understanding other people? What's a bigger problem? Can you think of anything that at its core doesn't have anything to do with not being able to understand other people? All right. Anyone can come up with a bigger problem than that. Oops, let's see. People, including me, jump to conclusions. Brian says happens every day with every person, including myself. That's a lot of self-awareness because it's easy to see in other people. So cheers to the good thinkers for being definitely more self-aware than others. Cheers to Brian. I'm going to put Brian, I'm just going to randomly, I got to highlight that because, that's so true and so good. And we've got to highlight this because that's so good and that's so true. All right. So we're highlighting people who can admit that sometimes, though Jennifer says, no, she never jumps to conclusion. Maybe she's answering another question. There's a delay in the chat. So is there a bigger problem? Maybe you're saying, no, there's not a bigger problem. And if you're saying no, that there's not a bigger problem, then the that at its root would be resolved if we could better understand each other, you may be right. You may be right. I can't think of one. If you can think of one, definitely put it in the chat. Aman says the absence of open-minded. All right. And we're going to get even better than open-minded. We're going to get better than open-minded because the Socratic method is 2,500 years of proof that it works. All right. Next question. This is really important. This is so important. If you're going to answer any question in today's show, this is the one to answer. Ready? Think hard. When was the last time that you engaged in a conversation with someone about something important? So any topic about something important. Now, let me give you some examples of what might be important, like equality or equity, or whether social media should ban certain people from the platform. Take something could be really intense. It could be personally intense. It could be religion, the things that you say. We don't talk about this at work. When was the last time you engaged in a conversation with someone about this? All right, now think about this in your mind. And now you're going to categorize it. Was it one, both of you were debating one side or the other side and trying to persuade? So that's one. And you could put one debating. Two, both of you were agreeing. When you get into this vehement agreement with like-minded people and you're like, yeah, and I agree with that. But what about this? But you're both agreeing. So that's number two, agreeing. And number 3, both of you were truly, you didn't agree, but you were truly trying to know and understand the truth. Not to prove that you were right, but to understand the proof. So every day within the family, Jennifer says, at work, Peggy says yesterday. All right. What number was the last conversation that you had about something like that? Number 1, maybe it's so Peggy says yesterday, Ahmed says last week. Okay, now that you know and you've got that idea in your mind, was it to debate? Number 1, to kind of preach to the choir, as we say, like vehemently agree? Number 2, or number 3, was it to truly try to understand the truth? All right, Brian says 2 days ago with my daughter about the DC protest, debating the cause and effects. Excellent. That's a good one. So when you tell me when, tell me if it was 1, to debate, 2, to vehemently agree, or 3, to really understand the truth. Okay, Ahmed says 3. Zayula says 1. Exactly. Jennifer says 3 with my son. Okay, that's not that common to, I got to figure out how to pull that. Let me see. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the, we're going to new comments. I see what I'm starting to need is, I'm starting to need, we're going to have to leave that comment. Oh, there we go. I'm trying to deal with the stream at the same time. So I'm going to start to need to have a moderator. All right. 1 of each, seeking the truth. All right, let's get into this because number 3 is where we're going to focus. Number 3 requires dialogue. And frankly, we've kind of lost the habit. Now we've got, Stephen says 1 of each. Mojtaba says mostly 3. So some of you are saying, yeah, I really did engage in dialogue. Brian says 3, seeking the truth. I mean, cheers to you, because that is not a very common way. Now, of course, good thinkers, maybe it's not a representative sample. Maybe we sway a little bit more toward seeking the truth, and that's why we're here. I mean, so that could be self-selecting. But let's see if we really are doing this. All right. I think that the Socratic method, it's time for the Socratic method to come out of the shadows of law school and philosophy classes and education or pedagogy. I think it's time to pull the Socratic method out of this because I think it's our way back to talking to each other, to explore complex ideas, illuminate the information gap between what we know and what we don't know, and uncover assumptions and seriously get closer to the truth. So the Socratic method is a form of systematic, disciplined, and deep questioning. It's used to demonstrate complexity. So it's not trying to minimize complexity, like make things clearer, pattern match like we do. It's not a storytelling. No. It is really to demonstrate complexity, to add to our knowledge, to get closer to the truth. All right. When you think of the word argument, do you think of the argument as a positive? Do you think when you hear the word argument, do you think a positive or a negative? I don't want argument. You think of it's positive or negative. And Alexander says, had a conversation with my roommate last week about equality and freedom of speech. I tried to have a discussion and understand her point. However, she didn't do the same. The discussion died very fast. Okay, I'm going to pull that in. That's really so common. Thank you for saying that, because you're going to learn how 2 sides really need to be prepared for Socratic dialogue. You can't show up ready for Socratic dialogue without making sure that both parties are prepared. And this is why if you are a leader in a company or your own company, or you even want to kind of think of this as a tool that you can create in your community. Like I have this fantasy about creating Socratic dialogue salons where we can literally talk about things to get closer to the truth. So that's a little hint. But when you think of an argument, do you think it's mostly negative or mostly positive? Like you hear an argument. Do you think argument versus debate? I would rather debate. Okay. Now, hint, Socratic dialogue is not debate, because debate is persuasive. Socratic dialogue is not persuasive. Hint, I would rather debate. So you don't think of argument. I'm going to pull that in because I think that's a really good comment. You don't think of argument as bad. You think of argument as debate, right? Now, Ahmed says, positive if the ground rules are respected. I got to pull that one in too, because that hints at exactly what we're getting to today. Brian says, wife and I used to avoid all arguments. We learned the hard way to argue before the issues got too big. Okay, good. So I think Brian's saying we kind of look at argument as a tool, a useful tool. Victor says argument is positive because every concept is an argument. Oh, I got to pull that one in too. You guys, the comments are so good, so good. Anyway, this is great because I agree. Argument, we need to reframe how we perceive and what we perceive as an argument. And Zaula says argument has a negative connotation. It does for a lot of people, but maybe we can do this. And Brian says, I prefer dialogue, investigating underlying premises and their sources. Okay, that is the meaning of dialogue. So that is kind of a hint at what we're going to get into today. But we have to go all the way back to about 450 BCE to Athens. I'd love to be in Athens right now. And we're going to thank Socrates. Actually, Socrates didn't write stuff down. He actually thought that writing was lazy, that it was about oration, the oral word, the written was lazy. So ultimately it was up to Plato to translate Socrates' teachings to so that we could read about it. And so we kind of have to thank Socrates and Plato for this. But this also speaks to when people say, no, that's not the Socratic method. Okay, the Socratic method is really getting to the gist of things. And we're going to give you a step-by-step today. But remember that there's many people that give you specifics about the Socratic method as there are people who study it. But ultimately, it was translated from Socrates' ideas to Plato. And Plato is the one that wrote this down. So there's an interpretation thing. All right, ready? Ready for your next question? Is this a Socratic question? What year did Egypt become an independent state? Is that a Socratic question or not a Socratic question? What do you think? Socratic question or not a Socratic question? Rubber chickens for those who get an answer in the chat. Not even if you get it right, because we just want participation, because you don't have a Socratic method without participation. So the year that Egypt became an independent state was 1922. And Brian is correct. That is not a Socratic question. Socratic questions are not about questioning someone so that they can spew a fact. So Stephen says not. So far, we've got 100% correct answers that is not a Socratic question. I like to think of the Socratic method in three ways. And we're going to focus. Jennifer says no. Ahmed says no. Peggy says no. Everyone's right. Yay, good thinkers. All right. So think of Socratic method as three different things. And we're going to focus on dialogue today, but think of Socratic method as one, as a teaching tool for educators. And people generally think of the Socratic method as like what law school does, where you sit in the classroom and the professor stands up in front and, Mr. McGillicuddy, what is da, 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 da. So in asking questions to probe students' understanding of the material. So the students have to know the material, they have to read the material, but it's not just enough to recite. They have to actually understand and answer in a way. So we think of the Socratic method like that, or maybe a really good teacher does that. I don't remember many teachers in my growing up. I mean, I had some good teachers, but I don't remember any that were really using the Socratic method to probe, to understand what my thoughts and ideas are. So they ask probing questions, and the participants first strive to identify and account for themselves and their beliefs and their thoughts and actions. So it really, in this case, it aims to get at the motivations of our thinking, to think beneath the surface. And now, that is one thing, but citing authorities and stuff like that, that is not an answer to a Socratic method of questioning. So that's kind of the way it's work when it's like a teaching tool. So imagine a world where every student had the benefit of an education like this. Okay, there are 6 main types of Socratic questions, and these are their purposes. So when you think of getting into a Socratic dialogue, which we're going to get into, think of these as the reason to get into this dialogue. Number 1, to clarify concepts. What are we talking about when we're talking about equality? What are we talking about when we're talking about growth? If growth is the best measure of a company's success? What are we talking about when we're talking about growth? All right. So those things to clarify the concepts. And the number 2 is to challenge assumptions. What are we just assuming? What are we assuming that we're not exploring, that we're standing on? We can even agree that these assumptions we're going to all agree on. Okay. But what are we doing there? Number 3, to probe rationale, reasons, and evidence. So, it's about also digging up evidence and probing the evidence. Is it reliable? Is it relevant? Is it valid? Big part of it. Number 4, to question viewpoints and perspectives. Now, you could say, okay, from this viewpoint, it would be this, and from this viewpoint, it would be that. This is difficult if we can't see others' viewpoints, or we put assumptions based on labels that we give people. Number 5, to explore implications and consequences. And number 6, to question the question. Like, okay, how should I think about that question? To question the question. So these are the 6. Let me know. Clarify concepts, challenge assumptions, probe evidence, question viewpoints and perspectives, explore the implications and consequences, or to question the question, what would be your favorite thing? Like if you could be in a dialogue, what would be your favorite thing out of all of those? Share it in the chat, because that helps you think about the purpose of Socratic dialogue. So imagine that you're in an environment, you're at work, you're with friends, you're with people that you don't know, and you know that with certainty that it is entirely safe to explore your thinking. What does that even mean? All right. So imagine you were asked these questions. Could you elaborate further on what you're saying? And you didn't reflexively think, what a jerk. Why are you questioning me? Could you elaborate further on what you're saying? And you were like, oh my gosh, this is an opening for dialogue instead of whatever. Okay. So can you imagine that question? We're going to give some other questions so you can kind of see examples of Socratic questions. Now, Jennifer says no. Ahmed says not. Jennifer says, okay, this is good. Jennifer says viewpoints. So Jennifer would like to, when she thinks about it, she's trying to probe viewpoints. I'm going to bring that into the chat. Into the screen, the chat into the screen, viewpoints. Brian says probing rationale. Perfect. So you start to think, what would be the reasons that I would want to get involved in a Socratic dialogue? You see, it's not to prove yourself right or to even get more evidence so that you can prove yourself right. That isn't one of the things. All right, other questions, Socratic questions. Can you give me an example to illustrate your point? So let's say that you were telling someone your point of view and you didn't know if you thought that they agreed with you. You thought they were your friend, and then they say something like, can you give me an example to illustrate your point? Imagine not having this reflexive response where it's like, who are you to question me? But you were like, yes, we're doing this. We're in dialogue. Or what are you taking for granted here? Why are you assuming that? What if you genuinely felt that you were being asked that out of curiosity, and you were genuinely able to ask that out of curiosity? Think about how closer you would get to discovering the truth. Or what makes this a complex question? What makes, do all humans have equal value? What makes that a complex question? Now, if you were asked that, you'd say, it's not complex, it's just a fact. But what makes it a complex question? And really answering that and thinking about that out of curiosity. Or is there a plausible alternative conclusion? Those are all Socratic questions. All right. Stephen says that would be great. Ahmed says questions and assumptions and provide reasons and define the challenges and consequences. So that would be what he would do, testing the assumptions and defining challenges and consequences. Perfect. Now you guys are starting to get to the purpose of Socratic dialogue and how it's so different from how we communicate with others as our default. Have you ever been in an environment, work or school or any environment, where you can ask and answer these questions without reflexive, like putting up your armor or feeling threatened or feeling like you need to threat? Have you ever been, can you even think of the last time you were in an environment like that? Yes? No. You can think of an environment like that, or you can't. I just be curious. I don't even need to know what environment it is. I just be curious to know if you can even think of it. All right. Now, we talked about the second way that I like to think of Socratic dialogue, which is this Socratic method, which is using it to dialogue. But there's a third way, which is using it to dialogue with yourself, to really get closer to the truth yourself. So you can have this kind of thing. I like talking to myself, I admit. But you can have this kind of dialogue with yourself. But this is going to be focused on others. But as we're going through how to do it and how to prepare, think about it for yourself as well. All right. Ready to get into it? Ready? Yeah. Yeah. Becky, get on it already. All right. I'm going. I'm going to try to wrap this up quickly, but got to get to the Socratic dialogue. All right. Number one, it doesn't work if you don't prepare your mind. So you hear a lot about mindset and getting into the right mindset. And you think, okay, well, what does that mean? You have to be in the right mindset, but so does your dialogue partner. If your dialogue partner and you are not in the right mindset, it doesn't work. So what is the right mindset? Number one, you have to elevate curiosity. Curiosity has to come before judgment, criticism, fear, and complacency. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Complacency or fear. I'm afraid that my strongly held belief is going to be challenged. Or judgment. Who are you to tell me? You're not even a PhD. Or criticism, criticizing the person. All right. Anna says, I always talk to myself. Yay! Cheers for people who talk to themselves. All right. So first, you both have to be curious. And remember that this can't just be you preparing yourself. Your dialogue partner also has to be prepared. So that's why you can't just jump into this without saying, okay, we're going to do Socratic dialogue here. That could be your clue. All right. Victor says, everyone talks to themselves. I know, but does everyone talk to themselves out loud? I do. But does everyone, okay, I'm curious. Does everyone do you talk to yourself out loud? Yes or no? And say, talk to myself, don't talk to myself. So I know in the chat what we're talking about, because I'm curious, because I've definitely talked to myself. All right. Number one, we have to stop judging the person. We cannot use ad hominem attacks, like you make an argument that is an argument to consider on its merits, but you're not a scientist. Okay, now you might challenge the veracity of the argument, but judging the person is not part of the mindset of the Socratic method. All right, think of idea building. Your goals have to help your dialogue partner enhance their ideas, and the goal has to be to enhance your ideas. So it's really a goal enhancement. All right. So Ahmed says he does talk to himself. Victor says I do. Maybe not everyone does. Stephen says I talk to myself silently. Okay. So I talk to myself out loud. So I think we all talk to ourselves silently. Only a few, maybe, I don't know, most of us, I don't know, a few of us. Maybe I'm in the weird minority who talks to themselves out loud. Someday I'll tell you the story of when my boss caught me talking to myself out loud. It's a useful tool for me, but we won't go there right now. Next thing for your mindset is to stop reacting to what others say. You cannot go into threat mode when someone asks you to clarify what you mean. Alexander says, talks to myself, sometimes my cat. Brian says, I move my mouth, but I don't talk. I'm debating my imaginary debate partner. Wife makes fun of me all the time. Who are you talking to? Okay, that's funny, because you're like, you don't want to look as crazy as me where the words are actually coming out, but you're mouthing it. Why do we talk to ourselves? That's a very weird thing. All right. Next thing is you have to set aside labels. And I'm going to say something, and you might, this is a strongly held belief, but we could have a Socratic dialogue on this. But identity politics doesn't work well with Socratic dialogue, because identity politics is about labels. And labels are antithetical to a successful Socratic dialogue. Like you can't even say, well, that person is a scientist, because you really have to evaluate the evidence on its merits. That's what I do. Silently move my mouth, Jennifer says. Oh, see, I guess okay. So everyone silently moves their mouth, and I'm the only one yammering to myself. All right, great. Next, you have to get comfortable with silence. And here is my clue. Here's a very sage advice from someone back in the day. One of my old mentors said to me, it is important, Becky, to learn to breathe through your nose. Now, here's your hint. Try breathing through your nose. And what can't you do? Put it in the chat. What can't you do when you breathe through your nose? unless you have some talent I don't know about. What can't you do when you breathe through your nose? All right, put it in the chat. You've got to embrace productive discomfort. It is sometimes discomforting when you have silence, when you are being asked to provide evidence for your beliefs, and you have to lean into that discomfort, both you and your dialogue partner. You have to forget striving for superiority, because this method is not to prove your opponent wrong. Jennifer says, what can you not do when you breathe through your nose? You cannot talk. Cannot talk when you breathe through your nose. Bingo! Rubber chickens for the correct answer for Jennifer. All right. So you've got to stop persuading. Debating is awesome. As Jennifer said, debating is awesome. Persuasion is useful, but dialoguing is not debating. And actually, for a lot of people who are very comfortable in debate, lawyers or kids who are in debate or whatever, it can be very difficult to switch into dialogue, because debating and dialogue are very different. All right. And then the last thing in terms of mindset is you got to be courageous. You got to open up. I mean, the courage to trust. Trusting is not our default. We feel that if we open up about why we believe what we believe, we will be subject to attack and ridicule, or our beliefs will be trampled by someone who has a better memory or is more articulate. But you've got to trust. Without trust, Socratic dialogue doesn't work. So it's great for questioning the things that you know so solidly that you don't even question it. Like, it is a no-brainer. Those are the things where the Socratic dialogue are particularly fun. You might have to start on some loosely held beliefs before you jump into your strongly held beliefs, like as practice, but sometimes people just jump all in. All right. So imagine you're going to a barbecue, and you are invited to a barbecue that we are going to have a salon where we're going to have Socratic debate. So they say, okay, bring your closely held belief, bring your delicate trust, and bring your favorite dish. Can you imagine how fun that would be? But first you have to get into the mindset. All right. After the mindset, you have to start with your firmly held belief. I mean, one that you know that's a no-brainer. Maybe you're bringing Socrates to work, and the no-brainer is financial growth should be the greatest measure of success. Or maybe you're really brave and you're bringing the belief that every life has equal value, or capitalism is the best economic and political system, or money makes you happy, or love is the most important thing in the world. So then you have a dialogue, not a debate, a dialogue. See the difference? All right. Number 3, clarify concepts. Each of you share your belief and what you mean. If your belief is that love is the most important thing in the world, be clear in your mind on what you mean by love and what you mean by important. And number 4, and this is really the key, to Socratic dialogue is dig with a curiosity shovel. Why do you have this belief? So hopefully you have one in your mind right now. Hopefully it's a strongly held belief. Why do you have this belief? Where did it come from? If your belief is love is the most important thing in the world, where did this belief come from? Why do they have their belief? How and when did they get this belief? Like, did you have it when you were 3 years old? Did they have it when they were 3 years old? Who gave them their belief? Who gave you your belief? When did you get it? What other beliefs is this belief tied to? A lot of our beliefs make a big spider web. So there may be some beliefs that are way out here, and you may not even realize what these beliefs are tied to. But when you use the Socratic dialogue, you start realizing where the origin story of your beliefs. And that is how you get closer and closer to the truth. You learn more about your thinking. So it says he cannot talk when he breathes through the nose. That is correct. Brian says, Peter saying, 5th discipline idea of learning orgs gets toward the Socratic framework. Great. So, and I haven't really seen it at work very much. So if you've seen it working really well at work, let me know, because I'd love to know that. All right. So back to the digging with curiosity, I'm going to give you some other things to think about. Like, are there exceptions to what I believe? Like, even though I know that life has equal value, money is often a measure of value, and we don't all get equal money. So that's the way you start exploring your beliefs. Are all beliefs tied together? Do you think that your strongly held belief is tied to your weakest held belief in some way? Yes? Are all beliefs tied together? Or no? There's not really a right answer, but what do you think? And what benefit does this belief that you have afford you? Like personally, I benefit from this belief by, I'll get into actually an example of this. So for example, do you believe that the earth has some kind of version of a sphere? Do you believe that the earth is some kind of version of a sphere? Yes or no? Flat earth? Do you believe the earth is flat, or the earth is somewhat spherical, oval spherical? Which one? Flat or sphere? All right. We're going to go a little longer today. I'm sorry if you have to bug out. We usually try to do good thinking in and out in less than 30 minutes, but the Socratic method is a little bit, and I got people asking, we really want to go deep. So I'm going to go a little deeper today. If you have to bug out and tune in later, fine. I promise we'll be back in 30 minutes in and out next Monday, which, by the way, we have some incredible interviews coming up. But do you believe that the earth is flat? Now, the fact that the earth is not flat, that it's spherical or round to be simple, is a strongly held belief. Like, I don't believe the earth is flat. Why is it necessary for me to believe that the earth is not flat? Well, there are certainly people who believe that the earth is flat, the so-called flat earthers. So Victor says, yes, the earth is spherical. Jennifer says, yes. Stephen says, round earth. Yeah. I mean, none of you are, quote, flat earthers, which is, by the way, a label, but none of you believe that the earth is flat. Now, imagine having a Socratic debate with someone who believes that the earth is flat, but the goal wasn't to prove them wrong, wasn't to prove your superiority, but it was to get deeper and deeper understanding of your own thoughts around the shape of the earth and to get a deeper understanding of their thoughts. So how do I benefit from my belief? Well, my belief that the earth is spherical or oval puts me among people who believe in science. And I'm not one of those flat earthers. I believe in science. So that benefits me. So I then join kind of my team, my crew. Hamid says round. Absolutely. How do I know that the earth is not flat? Because scientists and teachers and everyone I know has told me. Remember, this is not to convince you that the earth is flat. This is brain fuel. This is to get you thinking about your thinking. Now, it's cooler to get closer to the truth. Number 5, you seek evidence, especially disconfirming evidence. And this is really important. You have to go into a Socratic method with the intention of seeking disconfirming evidence, not information and evidence that supports your pre-existing beliefs. That's easy. Confirmation bias, but actually seeking disconfirming evidence. And by that, I don't mean bogus evidence. Still, you have to be able to check whether the evidence is reliable and relevant, but you have to be open to seeking disconfirming evidence. And you have to also be able to provide reliable, relevant, or disconfirming evidence when you're in a Socratic dialogue. Okay. Here's a Socratic question. Ready? What's the difference between trying to disconfirm your belief and seeking disconfirming evidence? What is the difference between trying to disconfirm what you believe and seeking disconfirming evidence? There's a slight difference. They can be related, but they're different. All right. You will begin to not only understand the belief that you've chosen or that's chosen you or your idea, but you'll know why and how you came to understand what you believe. And that's really the goal. And you learn this about your Socratic dialogue partner. You'll understand their beliefs and how it's tied to their other beliefs. You'll understand them. Number 6, challenge assumptions. What would it mean for you to abandon this belief? Okay, what if your strongly held belief, you abandon it for 1 minute? Just 1 minute. 1 minute, I'm going to believe that the earth is flat. I don't know. Are you that creative with your thinking? How do you know? What do you lose? What benefit do you use? Do you have a belief in your mind? Because if you think, okay, what if I abandon this belief for a week, a month, a year? What if I abandon this belief forever? What would happen? So if you're leading or teaching a team, you can be the Socratic facilitator, and you can have another member of your team be the Socratic facilitator. Let's say you call a meeting to discuss goals or purposes or values. You could do a Socratic questioning, or you could engage in Socratic dialogue. And then afterwards, the last step is to assess the process, which is, did I make a change? Did I add anything to my knowledge chest? Or did everything about my belief stay the same? What did I learn about my belief? Okay, so that is really the steps of a Socratic method. Sorry, we're going a little more than 10 minutes over, but I'm going to tell you why you want the Socratic method, because it's a lesson in intellectual modesty. Why intellectual modesty? It's the only way to add to your knowledge chest, is to have intellectual modesty. As Socrates quote, now, we said, well, you don't use quotes in a Socratic dialogue. Well, this isn't a Socratic dialogue. This is just, a live show, right? As Socrates, as told by Plato, said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing, and I'm not quite sure that I know that. And he also famously said, I neither know nor think that I know. And that's the mindset that one has to get in. And it's a very difficult mindset with our information overload and our constant challenges to share what we know and to show what team we're on and to prove and to get likes and follows. This is not the mindset that really lends itself to likes and follows and building a tribe, unless the tribe is the tribe of the curious, or people who are really valuing intellectual inquiry over being right. And the second thing is we become humble with our claims of knowledge. Hubris is the enemy of intellectual progress. And the only way we can progress intellectually is to embrace how little we know and curiously seek to know more, including about ourselves. Socrates said, an unexamined life is not worth living. He wasn't talking about self-absorption, like, how do I get people to revere me? Or how do I get more followers? That's not an examined life, not according to Socrates. It's more about questioning, what am I trying to accomplish by striving to get more followers or striving to get more people to revere me, and really questioning our assumptions that may be part of our default way of living. So last thing is that I love the last quote, rather, I will say, is Francis Bacon, who said, if a man will begin with certainties, okay, or a woman, he shall end in doubts. But if he will be content to begin with doubts, he shall end in certainties. Do you agree? Do you agree that doubt is the road to certainty? Yes or no? All right. Do you have a right justification first? Then you define your beliefs. Ahmed said yes. Jennifer says seeking is open to the possibility that there isn't evidence, trying to make sure you prove you're wrong. Yes. I'm not quite sure, because sorry about the delay response in the chat. It's a problem with the live stream, but we'll get to it. And maybe I'll even afterwards answer some of the questions that I missed. So might success be a belief worth examining? In our Good Thinking episode, we talked about success and luck. Someone asked a really good question. If it was you, let me know in the chat. What is success? I said, it's however you define it. It's personal. So might success be one of your beliefs worth examining with Socratic Dialogue, with a Socratic Dialogue partner? Where did your idea of success come from? Wouldn't it be fun to have a Socratic Dialogue about success? In the next few episodes, we have fascinating interviews, and I'm not necessarily going to use the Socratic method for these interviews, but I probably will use quite a few Socratic questions, and you will be able to ask your Socratic questions. Victor says I do. Fantastic. We've got Kwame Christensen coming on, negotiation specialist. If you don't follow him on LinkedIn, I suggest you do. We've got Brian Ahern also. These are two other of my fellow LinkedIn learning instructors coming on. And then we have Julie Fast, who is a guru in the mental health field. And we're going to talk about how good thinking relates to all of these things. You're going to be able to ask questions and engage. So be here Monday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And we would love to have you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get notifications. So you subscribe to Becky Saltzman, and then you have to actually hit that bell to get notifications of when we go live. We want you on the show. You're a part of it. And welcome to Good Thinking and Socratic Dialogue. I hope it works for you. Let me know if you have any questions, share, whatever you're supposed to do, subscribe, all the things. See you next week. Have a great week.